We begin with President Yoon Suk Yeol's policy briefing and press conference. During his 30-minute live address to the nation, Yoon touched on some of his past tasks and updated the public on his four main reforms. They are pensions, education, labor, and the medical sector, as well as tackling the current low birth rate. For more, we have our correspondent Kim Do-yeon on the line. Do-yeon.
Dami, as you said, the live address focused on his reforms you mentioned. For today, pension was in the spotlight as he unveiled for the first time how the government is trying to reform the pension system. Yoon said the final version of the proposal is coming with specific numbers to present to the National Assembly.
노인은 가난하고 청년은 믿지 못하는 지금의 연금 제도를 근본적으로 개혁해야 합니다. 22대 국회가 근본적인 개혁 논의에 속도를 낼 수 있도록 저는 오늘 정부가 구상하는 연금 개혁의 방향을 말씀드리고자 합니다.
He said the government's proposal for pension reform is based on sustainability, fairness among generations, and income security for senior citizens. First, he said he will make long-term sustainable changes to the system to restore the public's trust in the nation's pension system, adding that simply adjusting parameters to extend the fund depletion date by 8 to 9 years is not sufficient. One major push for a change he emphasized was that people pausing their pension contributions due to military service or childbirth will be given credit to not create any gaps. For fairness among generations, President Yoon says the proposal will focus on making the system acceptable to the younger generation who contribute the most over the longest period and start receiving the benefits last. This, he says, can be done through making the pace of premium increases different for the young and the middle-aged. Lastly, he spoke on expanding incentives such as tax benefits for personal pensions to maximize the possible retirement income.
Now, Do-yeon, another hot topic is medical reform. With the government's unchanged stance on increasing the number of medical students starting next year, the standoff between the government and the nation's doctors continues, and there are concerns over the medical system's stability. What did he have to say here?
He actually says the medical reforms are being finalized, saying that the increase in the number of medical students is going according to plan.
이제 의대 증원이 마무리된 만큼 개혁의 본질인 지역 필수 의료 살리기에 정책 역량을 집중하겠습니다. 먼저 의사 확충과 함께 교육 수련 선진화에 만전을 기하겠습니다. 2025학년도 의대 신입생 모집은 현재 차질 없이 진행되고 있습니다.
He reiterated his stance that medical reform and increasing the number of doctors is one of the core agendas for boosting non-capital regions. He also said the whole structure will be changed for tertiary hospitals, which have been overly dependent on resident doctors. He's looking to change it so that specialists and clinical support nurses become the core of medical services from now on.
Right, so an unchanged stance there. Now, what about the other reforms? I mean, what was the key takeaway when it comes to the chronically low birth rate?
For education and labor reforms, nothing has changed much. The president spoke on public care for education while making sure labor laws are followed. As for low birth rate, which was his focus during the last time he had a policy briefing and press conference, he reminded the public about the new senior secretary role he created for this while pushing for a ministry to tackle the issue. He said the low birth rate is connected to all of the reforms and that these tasks need to be completed to bring up the low birth rate. That's all for now. I'll be back with more in later cast. Dami?